morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, out of Voice of Radio. So today, we need to look at a couple of new Pokemon cards that look like they've got a huge amount of potential, and one that doesn't. But it might as well go in here, why not? These are not actually coming in EV Heroes, these are coming in the Inteleon and Gengar V Max decks. It should be pretty obvious which ones come in which deck. So let's start off with one that is absolutely taking my heart. It is Morpeko, and you might notice that in the recent Players' Cup broadcast I was rocking a Hangry Form Morpeko pin, so maybe that was a sign. I didn't know this card was coming, but I kind of love it. Now, starting off looking at the basics, it doesn't look great. 50 HP does mean you can search it out with Level Ball. It's also absolutely pitiful. Retreat cost of 1 is nice and low, and weakness to grass. I mean, find me a grass Pokemon that can hit 30 damage, they'll get a KO here. This is terrible, but there's a very good reason for it. Now, our translation obviously comes from lovely Antoine Boulet. I'm sure by now you've probably guessed that, but just in case you haven't, we love Antoine. Antoine is awesome. What we've got here is one attack for a single Darkness Energy, Frustration Explosion. What a name. This attack does 30 damage for each damage counter on this Pokemon. And your first reaction to this is probably going to be, oh, so it's rubbish Spiritomb. It's Spiritomb, but worse. Because if we look at Spiritomb, right? Spiritomb does 10 plus 30. So, does an extra 10 damage. And it's got an extra 10 HP, so a higher damage cap. And it's got an ability that puts a damage counter on it, so you get the damage going. At first glance, it looks like a terrible Spiritomb. And then you realise that it's a single strike Pokemon. And then you start remembering about all the tricks that single strike Pokemon have. And then you realise that there's actually a very good chance it's a better Spiritomb. And I have made no secret on this channel of my love for Spiritomb. Spiritomb Excadrill is still one of the weirdest, most inventive, and honestly best decks I've made in years. Got me to the top 64 in Europe in the first Players' Cup, which people did not think that was going to happen. I told my friends about my deck. They were not believers. So I love me some Spiritomb. But this is better. And there's a couple of good reasons. First of all, Houndoom. You see, we can't put damage on ourselves using an ability, but we can use Houndoom. Houndoom has got that lovely ability that lets you search your deck for a single strike energy and attach it to one of your single strike Pokemon. This is a single strike Pokemon. And you don't need the energy acceleration here, you're talking about a single energy attack. But when you do that with Houndoom, you put 2 damage counters onto the Pokemon you attached it to. Oh. And this might be a good time to remind you that Single Strike Energy, when attached to a Single Strike Pokemon, lets you do an extra 20 damage. Oh. See where we're going with this? 2 Houndoom. And yes, I know you're overpaying for the energy, I don't care. Remember, we've got Earn of Vitality, which lets you recover your Single Strike Energy, so I don't care about overpaying the energy here. Houndoom accelerates it, Earn of Vitality recovers it, don't care. So basically here, use Houndoom twice to put 2 energy on Morpeko. And then you've got the perfect 4 damage counters on there. And then you're actually hitting 120 damage, except you've got 2 single strike energy, so you're actually not hitting 140, you're hitting 160. For what it's worth, if we go back to Spiritomb, if you got 5 damage counters on Spiritomb, you'd be hitting 160. I don't know how much Spiritomb you guys played. I played an obscene amount of Spiritomb. Getting 5 damage counters on it isn't easy. Doable, not easy. It's easy to get Morpeko hitting 160. Like, really easy. As in, if you've got 2 Stage 1 Houndoom in play, and if you're playing a single strike deck, that is something you should be aiming for, you can drop Morpeko and instantly hit 160, unless you don't have 2 single strike energy in your deck, but really that's on you. Yeah, this is quite good. Oh, did I mention it hits weakness on Shadow Rider Calyrex? And did I mention that Shadow Rider Calyrex has 320 HP? Or, if you take the weakness into account, 160. In a single strike deck, this is a nuts counter for Shadow Rider Calyrex. Like, I liked Umbreon V. I still do like Umbreon V, incidentally, and the VMAX has got an amazing ability and all of that. But Umbreon V, for free energy, gets a one-hit KO on a Shadow Rider Calyrex. This does it for 2. Now, the difference essentially is that Umbreon you need to attach from your hand as well as using Houndoom. Morpeko you don't. But Umbreon's going to then have 160 HP left. Morpeko's going to have 10. But Morpeko gives up 1 prize. Umbreon gives up 2. It is worth pointing out that if you do leave Morpeko with 10 HP remaining, your opponent will just be able to drop a Galarian Zigzagoon or something along those lines and take a mid-turn KO. But Morpeko isn't really a Pokemon to trade 1-for-1. There are other single-strike Pokemon that can trade 1-for-1. Morpeko is a Pokemon that wants to be trading a couple prizes for 1. Now, you will notice I said it hits 160. 160 is actually kind of super frustrating because you actually end up 20 damage away from getting a one-hit KO on something like a Crobat, for instance. But you can always attach a single-strike energy from your hand if you can find it. Or there are other ways to add a little bit of damage because it's a single strike deck. So get an Emboar out. Emboar means you do an extra 30 damage. So that 160 isn't 160, it's 190. Oh, look, you're over the threshold. Do remember that Mustard will play this from your deck straight away without having to evolve, as long as it is the only card in your hand, which is absolutely doable. Or we've got Karen, which does 20 damage for each prize card your opponent has taken. So, if your opponent's taken a couple prizes, this will get really big as well. If this wasn't a single-strike Pokemon, I wouldn't like it. Not even a little bit. But it is a single-strike Pokemon, ladies and gentlemen. And because it is a single-strike Pokemon, I am in. This looks genuinely awesome. Oh yeah, and it's like Spiritomb. So, yes, you absolutely can use Cape of Toughness to put you from 50 HP up to 100. Just remember that Tool Scrapper is a thing and will ruin your day. Yes, you absolutely can use Spikemuth to switch in and out of the active and put extra damage on you. These are all absolute possibilities, and when you start bringing in Spikemuth and switching in Cape of Toughness with Houndoom and all of that, your damage cap actually goes up pretty significantly. If you've got 9 damage counters on you, you're hitting 270, and that is before you start building in all your single strike energy, etc. But you're getting into awkward territory here, because you've got to hope your opponent doesn't play Tool Scrapper, etc., because you're probably not doing this in one turn, and because it's just an awkward combo. Also, if you got up to 100 HP, do remember that Houndoom will put 2 damage counters on, and Spikemuth will put 2 damage counters on. So it's actually kind of awkward to get up to 9. Realistically, playing around yourself, you're probably getting up to 8. Which, to be fair, is still 240 plus any extra tricks. That's still good. You're still one-hit KOing Vs. And to be fair, if you've got 4 Houndoom in play, you can do it. But we are getting into slightly silly territory here. Now, I'm giving this 5 Wassies. I think this is a legitimately great card. I think if you're playing this in a single-strike deck, it is nuts. I think outside of a single-strike deck, there are ways you can play around, but it's kind of awkward. But I think as a tech in a single-strike deck, if you're playing Houndoom, I don't know why you wouldn't be playing this card. It's amazing. Yveltal, because we're already 9 minutes into the video, we're going to go quick on Yveltal. I don't really like it. It's got 130 HP, which admittedly does mean it will survive those 120 Pokemon. Things like Rapid Strike Urshifu that naturally hit 120, but that's nothing to be too proud of. Retreat cost of 2 does mean you can retreat with Air Balloon, which I suppose is fine. I do like having a resistance to fighting. That's quite nice, and to be fair, Urshifu will hit 150. With resistance, that will go down to 120 and you'll actually survive. Weakness to Lightning is fine because Lightning isn't great post-rotation. And you're still a single-strike Pokemon. So you've got all of those great options like single-strike energy and Houndoom and all of that. And you're still hitting weakness on stuff like Shadow Rider Calyrex. I just don't see the point of this card. 2 energy, 50 damage, 3 energy, 110. I'm not even going to bother circling the attacks on screen like I usually do. Yes, you can use Houndoom to accelerate the energy. Yes, you can do extra damage using all the single strike tricks, but I don't see the point. Okay, fine, I do see the point. It's resistant to fighting. And it's the reason why Zapdos cards have often been pretty good, because Lightning decks are generally weak to fighting, so people start bringing in Zapdos because you're resistant to fighting rather than being weak to it. It's why the pretty underwhelming Zapdos from Roaring Skies actually ended up seeing a bit of play, because 3 energy, 120, and it's resistant to fighting. Fine. I'm still not playing it, because there are so many Pokemon out there like Morpeko that are just better. And also, okay, fine, it's not resistant to fighting, but Umbreon ain't weak to fighting, it's weak to grass. In fact, generally speaking, Darkness Pokemon will now be weak to grass, so I'm not even really worried about that fighting resistance like I would have been a while ago. The rule is Poison Pokemon come through as Darkness weak to fighting, Dark Pokemon come through as Darkness weak to grass. So yes, you're resistant to fighting, but it isn't like those old Zapdos cards that actually saw play, because when we look at it, you don't really get that scared because you're not hit for weakness. I'm giving it between 2 and 3 Wassies. We don't give half Wassies, that would be barbaric. I don't think it's an out-and-out trash card. I just don't really see the point. We've got better options. But if we pivot over to Rapid Strike for a moment, we've actually got a couple of other Pokemon to talk about. I know I said at the beginning it was free, I forgot about Lapras, I'm sorry. Let's talk about Lapras now. Now, Lapras has 120 HP, which as we've said is on the wrong side of the 120-130 divide. Retreat cost of 2 means Air Balloon, weakness to lightning is fine. And the fact you're hitting weakness against stuff like fire means things like Victini VMAX might be a little bit scared, except they're not, because this is not a Pokemon that's sitting there smashing into the active. That is not the point. For 1 colorless energy, sleep. No. I know it's a basic, I know it's a single colorless energy, and I know that I have said on a number of occasions this is what I'm looking for, but actually, with this particular Pokemon, it is not what I'm looking for. I am not a fan, boo hiss, etc. If you're just going to give me a special condition, just like chuck me 20 or 30 damage, yeah? Just for funsies. But the second attack is good. 2 water, 1 colorless energy. Put all energy attached to this Pokemon back into your hand. This attack does 100 damage to one of your opponent's benched Pokemon. Oh yeah, cool, no, I'm in now. Like, legitimately, that makes me in. I am loving it, ladies and gentlemen. I am absolutely loving it. It's 100 Snipe. And 100 Snipe is great. Now, bearing in mind this is going to be played in a Frostmoth deck. It's the only real reason to play this. Outside of a Frostmoth deck, it's too awkward. Yes, I am fully aware that Rapid Strike energy will pay 2 of the energy hits. It will count as water. Incidentally, we switch from single to Rapid Strike. And that's fine, but it's still a free energy attack. If you give this to me as an attack for a Rapid Strike energy, we can talk. But it's not. It's for a Rapid Strike energy plus 1 more, so I'm not loving it. Let's move on. But with Frostmoth, when I can just accelerate as much water as I like during my turn, yes. And now I'm hitting 100 to the bench. And I am absolutely, genuinely, legitimately loving it. Because you see, I mean, first of all, we can just loop this all day long with Frostmoth. Frostmoth lets me just reattach the energy, and this attack puts it back into my hand. So I attack, goes to my hand, and actually that's probably better than leaving it on there, because now if Lapras gets KO'd, I've still got that energy, I can reattach it with Frostmoth and we are ready to go. But it's not really 100 damage. Like against single prize Pokemon, then yeah, it's 100 damage. And that is going to be enough to get a KO on something like a Chinchino on the bench. It means you can start destroying evolving Pokemon, etc. It's awesome in that regard. But against a GX or a V, this is an absolute no-brainer to be using Telescopic Sight, which means you do an extra 30 damage to bench GXs and Vs. So now it's 130, except you're a Rapid Strike Pokemon. So you're not just using Telescopic Sight, you're also using Passimian. And Passimian, incidentally, is the same as Telescopic Sight. It's just for Rapid Strike Pokemon only. So now you're not hitting 130, you're hitting 160. And this is a game changer. Now, admittedly, 160 is not quite enough to get a KO on something like a Crobat or a Kricketune on the bench, but might I remind you, this is in the Inteleon V Max deck. So what you're actually going to be doing here is you're going to be playing Inteleon, and we've actually got two different options for Inteleon. The new Inteleon V Max lets you discard 1 water energy from your hand and then do 2 damage counters to each of 2 bench Pokemon. So you drop 2 damage counters on 2 Pokemon. Or you've got the just regular Inteleon, which is Decidueye GX. You don't have to discard an energy from your hand, and you drop 2 damage counters on 1 of your opponent's Pokemon. So now, if you've got either of these Inteleon out, then you are just hitting 180 to the bench, as long as it's a GX or a V. And it will be. And I love it. Seriously, this is an absolute monster of a card. I think it's brilliant. I think you've got to play it in a Frostmoth deck, and you've got to be using stuff like Telescopic Sight and Passimian and one of the Inteleon. I don't think it's an easy card to use, but I don't really care. And again, remember that Inteleon can be played with Mustard, although it plays from the discard in that case, and then you're fine playing it as a stage 2. But it's a kind of combo where if you get it working, you're just taking 2 prize Pokemon off your opponent's bench. And bearing in mind, just Frostmoth and this is a basic can start wrecking evolving decks, support Pokemon, etc. It's just when you build in Telescopic Sight, Passimian, and Inteleon, it gets legitimately nuts. I'm giving this between 4 and 5 Wassies. We don't give half Wassies. That would be barbaric. I think this is absolutely one to keep an eye on. I don't think it's going to be splashed into a bunch of decks. I do think you've got to make the combo work. But this is a really powerful combo. And just to make Yveltal feel bad, we have one last card to talk about, and it again makes Yveltal look a little bit bad. What we've got here is a new Basculin, which starts off looking a bit rubbish, finishes off looking a bit awesome. Now, if we start off with the basics, 80 HP, level ball, retreat cost of 1, low, weakness to lightning, fine. And again, you're a Rapid Strike Pokemon. But what we've got here is 1 water, 1 colorless energy, 30 damage. This attack does 10 more damage for each damage counter on your opponent's active Pokemon. And on the face of it, you're going, well, it's fine. But you do need quite a lot of damage on your opponent's active Pokemon to really make this worth it. And then you think about it for a little bit longer and you go, oh, Rapid Strike Urshifu and Rapid Strike Energy, okay, cool, I'm in. Because you see, ladies and gentlemen, the general rule is that when you're using Rapid Strike Urshifu, you're going to be aiming to try and use G-Max Rapid Flow to do 120 to each of 2 Pokemon. You are setting them up for the future. But then what? Basculin. That's what. Because then Basculin for just a Rapid Strike Energy will hit 150. Now, maybe you don't want to do this because that is a special energy, whereas Rapid Strike Urshifu, if it became active this turn, could hit 150 for a basic fighting, which is arguably better. And it's got a lot of HP and all of that. There are certainly arguments why you would want to leave Basculin and just use Rapid Strike Urshifu VMAX instead. And it's hard to argue with that. There are clear and obvious reasons to do it. I'm not saying leave the second attack, this'll do, pig. But I absolutely am saying that this is a very, very cool card with a huge amount of potential. And in a Rapid Strike Urshifu deck or something like that, I could see it seeing some love. So I'm giving it 3 Wassies. I think it's a brilliant little tech card, but I don't think it is a powerhouse card. And actually, even though I've just said that, this is Wassie from the future, by the way, hi. I want to kind of change my opinion on this, because I've had a little bit of time to think, and although what I said about Basculin, I stand by everything that I said, I think I've been a little bit mean to it, because actually there's things like Rapid Strike Urshifu. Yeah, sure, after a G-Max Rapid Flow, I can use Urshifu to hit 150 for a fighting, or this to hit 150 for a Rapid Strike, and I'd often want to use the basic fighting. What about if you use Gale Frost for 150, and then follow up with this for 180 and hit 330, which will KO the majority of VMAXs? That is a lot better. Shout out to Colin Norman on Twitter for pointing this one out to me. So I'm actually raising this one up to 4 Wassies, and I'm starting to feel a little bit misery. I did tell you I really liked all the cards in this video, but Yeltal. And even though I've just finished talking about Basculin, I have already had to come back from the future to kind of rethink it a little bit. Because actually this Basculin is a little bit better than I was giving it credit for. Certainly if you're playing Rapid Strike Energy, this is a no-brainer one-of. It is a phenomenal tech. I'm still not building a deck around it, but I do like it even more as a tech than I mentioned a moment ago. Alright, back to past, Wassie. So that's what you need to know, ladies and gentlemen. But now I want to know what you think about all of these cards, so let me know in the comment section. Go nuts! Be nice! And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at The Wassy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCG Radio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that good stuff, head on over to patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can do exactly that. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.